don't really understand what's happening here, but I do want to show you guys some stuff. And the reason is because it's important to understand who we're dealing with and who's coming after the AI community, and why it is that I don't think that they have a moral leg to stand on. First, you might be asking, okay, you're about to criticize Clip Studio and how it makes it possible for people to basically cheat. And why would you even have the software? If it'll let me show you. So this is the comic book. I am using Clip Studio as a means of assembling the individual drawings, because some of these are drawn as individual cells. And so I'll take it to Photoshop, and then I'll put it in Photoshop, and then I'll take it here, clean it up, add text, the dialogue balloons, things like that. But all of this is hand drawn. And so that's the angle that I'm taking here, is that I am old school. I'm not opposed to AI. I think that's pretty obvious by now. I just showed a bunch of AI music videos that I've done. Although Dilemma of the Seraph, that's actually my singing voice and my violin. I did, and also my voice acting. So if the voice acting is bad, it's my fault. But I did try to explain. Anthony does loosen up with time over the course of the story, but early on he's very reluctant to talk, just because the stuff he has to go through in school is pretty intense. And so he just tries to keep quiet and keep his head down, because if he does get angry, things get really, really bad. At the same time, while I'm okay with AI, I'm actually pretty committed to doing this by hand, just because that's just how I've always preferred to do things myself. Here's some of the villains. You guys have probably seen some of these pieces on my page, on my X page, and but now you guys are getting a preview of the comic book in its as we're moving toward the end game here. I don't want to deliver too many spoilers, but there's soul-stealing swords. I drew this one by itself, this one by itself. I drew this one by itself, and this one by itself. The rest of them I drew all on the same page. I am experimenting with digital rain just to try to make it a little bit smoother. So the rain is photoshopped in, the rest is hand drawn. But that's why I have Clip Studio. Now if it'll let me show you why the others have Clip Studio. I'm getting a lot of null messages. This is very frustrating, but that's okay. What we've got here is a bunch of tools, and some of it I don't mind so much. Some of it I think is pretty cringe. Stuff like this, where it just adds, line details or explodey aspects to it. I think that's fine. But we've also got these 3D assets. And we've also got pre-drawn tools that these digital artists who come after us for using AI are able to use. And what they'll do is they'll grab, say, this one, and they'll just trace it. They'll just trace it. And for all of their bravado and all of their ranting and railing, look at this. They're always going after us. So AI doesn't do hands very well. Well, without these, could they? And then they'll say, well, it's just a reference. It's just a reference. Is it, though? Is it? Because we've seen lots of videos of people tracing online. In a lot of these videos, they'll just outright admit to tracing in a lot of cases,
Start off with a reference image of your character. Go to the Materials tab, opening the 3D and then Body Type folders, and drag the body base you want to modify onto the canvas. Open up the Settings window for that object, and in the 3D Figure section, you can move sliders around to change the proportion of the entire body or just selected parts. You can use your reference image to help with these proportions. I advise that you start adjusting from the feet up, as that's where the model is anchored, so you won't have to constantly reposition the 3D model. Keep in mind that, with this method, you often will not be able to perfectly match your character. You will have to use your own pre-existing knowledge of anatomy, shapes, and volume to fill in the gaps. Even with these amazing tools available, you won't be able to get the most out of them without understanding the fundamentals of art first. Once you're happy with the model, register it as a material, giving it a name and slotting it into the correct folders. Now you can drag your 3D model onto a canvas and then drag pre-made poses onto the model. You will have to adjust the poses to make it work. Follow Iron Circus for more fun tips and some amazing comics.
So understand what's happening here. Now, I'll grant you, they did say you have to have a fundamental understanding of art in order for this to really work out for you. But here, they've encouraged you to make your own 3D models so that you can then trace it. Well, okay. Okay. This isn't traced. This isn't traced. This isn't traced. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, what I do is I have a little white box on my desk, and inside it's lined with green muslin. And just for the censors, that's muslin, not Muslim. They're very different things. So on a related note, how do you and others survive the Quangos on X? Every time I participate in those threads, I get ghost banned for like 4 days, and I have to delete several days posts to get unbanned. It's really discouraging. Oh, okay. This is going to sound very, very Quango-y, unfortunately, but basically it boils down to not using specific terms, if that makes sense. And I've been in trouble for using some of those terms before too. But if you argue with them and you don't, as a rule, swear, and you don't usually engage in the sort of names that they so deserve to be called, generally speaking, then you won't get banned. But keep in mind that the same rules apply to them. So if they start calling you things that are generally racist, bigoted, or whatever, you can use that rule to your advantage too and get them in trouble. But getting back to what I was saying here, so I'll set up the blank action figures in the cube, and I will take a picture of the pose that I want, and I will use the picture as a reference, but it's not traced. So I don't use this, and I don't really understand. Okay, there's hats you can trace, antique gold frames, furniture for tracing. I've got entire backgrounds for the galaxy, whatever, all these different heads, these pre-made heads. And sure, you can modify them, and sure, to make the best use of them, you have to have a fundamental understanding of art. That, fine. But do you really think that the people that are coming after us are in a position where they have that? There's a reason why all of these look the same. If you take a look at the artwork that they do versus even the artwork that the AI community is doing, what they're doing is very, very samey. It always looks the same. It's yeah, and there are these flags too. And every time, you end up in a situation where you can't tell the difference between one artist and another. And it's very, very frustrating because here they are coming after us. They're coming after me too. And I've shown you that I can draw. And as I get more and more advanced in my streaming, we're going to do more videos and me doing tutorials and things like that I think, or at least I hope people might be interested in. This is I had this planned out. I did. I was going to hop on X and I was going to show you the stuff going on in my thread and how all of the artists complaining all of their stuff looks the same. And it does. It really does. But this is why. Oh, wrong one. They're using this stuff and they're just tracing over it. But it gets worse. Give me just a minute here. Pre-drawn assets. This is stuff other people drew. And as we get further and further into the materials, you can see pre-drawn skies, pre-drawn buildings. And again, they'll tell you, oh, well, this is just to save time. Well, okay. So I'm still doing this by hand, but they're telling me that my art's fake because I also use AI. What is this? My art's fake, but because I also use AI, my art's fake? I don't use AI for this part. I use AI to make the music videos like the one I showed you, but even then is, you know, my voice, my singing, my violin. I wrote the song, I wrote the music 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So, but I'm the one that's doing fake art. And here they are. They're just point, click, 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 and combining other people's pre-drawn assets and acting like it's theirs. And then you'll see them say, "Oh, but my license. Okay, that's great. It's still not yours. Somebody else did this." And sure, you can modify it, but even so, the base of the piece is still not drawn by these people that are coming after us. And it's annoying when I see all of these cheats, and I have until now held that, well, these are tools, arrows in the quiver. But this is just layouts and stuff. These I might use, but it still even gets worse than that. They have tools here that will fix your proportions. Scoo showed you the tool that lets you, basically draw half the image and then mirror it to get the other half. That they've got that here too. And I would like to understand why in their minds this stuff's okay. These cheats, if you will, are okay. But using AI, even in an ancillary or supplemental way, why that's not okay. Because AI does not start with somebody else's work and then modifying somebody else's work. The big myth about AI is that it Frankensteins other people's art together. That's not what happens with AI. That's not what happens with AI at all. But that is what's happening here. And you've got all the tools in the world to basically cheat this and have the computer do the heavy lifting for you. Brushes will create plants for you. It'll create hair. So what makes that okay? I wouldn't be bringing it up at all if it weren't for the fact that they're the ones that are constantly going after people who are using AI. These tools are here. I might use these because these are layouts, and that actually could be helpful for the comic book, but what's inside of these layouts will be hand drawn. I don't know why I can't show you the homepage, but there's like so much more on the homepage, and it's not letting me show it. But there's all kinds of stuff. What I just showed you is just stuff that's available by default. But I'm looking at pre-drawn eyes. I'm looking at pre-drawn hair. I'm looking at pre-drawn eyeballs. And you just grab those and put them on the 3D model, and boom. There's more. So you don't have to draw anymore. Clip Studio's got everything that you would ever need in order to just assemble it. And that's what they're doing. They're not artists. They assemble. And then I already showed you can get the eyeballs separate. That would be, where was it? Oh, there's so much stuff here. And the computer just does it all for you, And then they have the audacity to bitch at us. At least, we have a vision in our head that we're putting into the computer. Turning AI users into the new bigoted label. Yes, I actually agree, which is one of the reasons why I oppose the label. It shouldn't be there. People should be able to just post their work without having labels. Hilariously, though, I do have a friend that works up at X, and he has told me that they're getting a label for the digital artists too, and that label will be synthetic. It's going to be labeled as synthetic. I would rather the labels just go away and people are just able to use whatever tools they want in order to pursue their vision. And I want to be clear, I am not condemning these artists for using these tools. These tools are there, but it is an explanation as to why everything looks so samey with this group. And they need to just, I'm offering this as a critique, they need to be able to break out of that and develop their own style. Because at the end of the day, that's the real reason that they're not selling. They're simply not good enough to be making money off of art. And rather than blaming us, because I don't know anybody that's making money off of AI, most of us are just doing it just for fun. But we're not the reason that they're not selling, and they need to stop acting like we are. They are the reason that they are not selling. Between that and the absolute garbage customer service, this nonsense that they're doing where if you don't agree with them politically, they're going to refuse to do the comm for you. I'll be honest with you, there are things that I would feel uncomfortable doing, but if somebody comes to me and say, hey, I'll give you a $500 for a black and white drawing of Barack Obama, I'm not going to tell them no, even though I can't stand the guy. It would be unprofessional for me to do so. Not only will I tell them yes, but I will also do my absolute best for the drawing, even though I can't stand the guy. Now, I do think that there are lines, because people want to bring up the bakery stuff. There are lines, obviously, if you are being asked to depict behavior that you are morally opposed to. I think that's a different thing. But just draw the picture, you know, if you can, or assemble it if you can't. But if you're going to be one of these assembly line artists, don't go after us for using AI. Because a lot of us are, in fact, using our own IP. We're just using it to streamline our process and to get supplemental material out there as we work on our hand-drawn stuff. I'm far from the only person that's doing it this way. And then there's people like Leaflet out there who are absolutely advancing the technology for incredible storytelling. She has an incredibly unique vision. I'm absolutely head over heels in love with the world of the Larian Chronicles and Moraine. Really great stuff, original material. She's just using AI to put that stuff out there and bring it to life. I don't have a problem with that. And again, ideally speaking, I wouldn't have a problem with this either. There's a reason why I'm only just now talking about it. I do think these artists, and even that video I showed you earlier on there where they showed you how to modify one of their 3D models so that you can trace it easier later. The truth of the matter is that if that's how they're assembling their stuff, what happens if their tablet gets taken away? Can they still draw without it? Especially when the software does so much of the heavy lifting. It's no different than saying you're not a real writer if you don't use the cursive or the quill pen. Yeah, actually, I think that's fair. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they're not real artists. I'm just saying that by their own logic, they're not. Because they are Frankensteining material together. They are. We're not. Because the way that the AI works, simply put, is that it gathers noise, which is static, and it rearranges the static based on the instructions that are given to it by the human user. In other words, AI can't do anything without a human user. Without being instructed to do otherwise, AI generally creates original images using original materials only. Now, they know this, and so they're going to go after us and say, oh yeah, but it's about how it's trained. Well, I'm trained the same way. When I first got into art class, the very first thing my teacher did was teach me a trick that I think is, extremely beneficial. I'm going to give you guys one of the oldest tricks in the book. Another dirty little secret that they don't want you to know is that we are all trained the same way. You look at other people's art, you try to recreate it at first, and then eventually what you end up doing is learning from studying other people's work and then developing your own unique imagery. The very first drawing that I did in art school back in high school was this. Not this version of it, this is Picasso, but I redrew this upside down. That's one of the reasons why you'll see Iron Tiger anytime that he's depicted as drawing, he's drawing upside down, because the AI, as I've been training it, has noticed that I draw upside down. And so it's picked up on that. And so it portrays Iron Tiger as drawing upside down. Drawing something upside down actually helps you see it in a way that you can't see it without doing that. And then you start to flip the paper sideways and draw it sideways, and then you're turning the paper around constantly as you're drawing to get a unique angle to see things that you wouldn't be able to see just looking at an image straight on. But the point is, this is Picasso. I'm going to show you guys some other people that I've learned from. This is one of my all-time favorite artists. He's known for X-Men. And guess what comic book that I read dominantly growing up? Shoot, I still have my copy of that. I've got all the variants, in fact, all of them, so that I can line them up back to back and assemble the whole cover, which was pretty cool. I studied him a lot. He's my favorite. I will not pretend that I'm anywhere near as good as he is, but I would like to be. And I am still studying his style, even though he's flipped over to DC. Look at that Wolverine. You think the digital artists should do this? There's two ways to do this: by hand or by AI. And if you try to do it by AI, you're going to run into the copyright guardrails. So the AI is actually much more stingy about what you can and can't do, because it actually is trying to avoid copyright infringement. Hilariously, a lot of our critics are absolutely 110% committed to IP theft, drawing Sonic or Sonic characters without permission of Sega and trying to sell those at conventions, things like that. Pokemon's really common. Or sexualized Pokemon too, which is weird. Reusing pre-made assets in a larger project, apparently fine. Creating tailored assets via generation to use in a larger project, apparently a war crime. Yeah, and that's my point. I'm not saying I'm against the digital artists. I do think that they're using the pre-made assets as a crutch, and that's actually holding them back. And let me show you another one. And Todd McFarlane actually recently got in trouble for saying he didn't have a problem with people making fan art of his work using AI. Look at his Spider-Man, man. This is, I'm nowhere near this good, but holy cow, man. Just epic levels of talent. Co-created Venom and went on to make Spawn. Incredible talent. And I to this day still study his work. This next one I would say is probably, was it Andy? It might have been Adam. Hold on. Nope, it is Andy. Kubert family. I think it might be fair to say that my own style probably is closest to his. I don't know. You guys can decide. I'm just putting speculating as to which of the three that I have looked at and I have studied that my style would resemble the most, and I think it's Andy Kubert, but I don't know. Spoiler. Be interested in seeing what other people think, but you can see that those three have definitely influenced my work. So what makes it okay for me to do this, to look at other comic books, to break it down in my mind and try to understand how it is that they're going about and creating this stuff. Why is that okay, but it's not okay for a computer to do the same? Because I don't see a difference morally. Real artists see the potential use of it. Yeah, exactly. I already showed you guys one, and then of course the earlier we showed Gina's song, which was done by Atami Works, and Atami's just incredibly talented. Atami can draw too, by the way, really, really well, and he does not use pre-made assets. Some pencil work by Andy Kubert. I love this stuff, man. There's the inking. I love this stuff. This is my favorite thing in the world. You know, I love comic books as much as Leaflet loves anime. And don't get me wrong, I love anime as well. But this is my favorite thing in the world. And I wish Marvel and DC had not gone so woke. And I want to explain, yes, comic books have always leaned left, and that's fine. Most of us are actually centrists. And this whole thing where everybody who disagrees with people is a Nazi, it's just not true. It's such garbage. Most of us, hear Xavier's dream and it sounds good to us. The real world is a little bit darker, and the real world doesn't always work to where you can have that dream. I love this. This is classic Andy Kubert right here. Classic Andy Kubert. And he did X-Men for a long, long time. A long time. And I grew up devouring every page and just studying it and trying to understand it and trying to replicate it, and then eventually taking what I learned from it and applying it to my own style. Doing my own thing with it. I really love this shot here. This is a real person, by the way. There was an actor, his name is Sam. Sweet guy. And he got off easy in the film compared to what happens to him in the comic book. But yeah, I mean, and again, you guys can tell me if you disagree, but I think that the influence of those guys can be seen in my own art. So I guess I just have a hard time understanding the moral difference between me learning by watching how those three work and trying to incorporate what I learned from them into my own work. Todd McFarlane didn't draw this. Andy Kubert didn't draw this. But did they influence how this was drawn? Absolutely. So, for all these people that are all, well, the computer should be paying people the royalty. Why? The images that are being generated are original. And they're not stealing art. They might be learning how to do the art. But again, that's how humans learn too. To try to make an argument, a moral argument especially, that it's different, how? How is it different? Because I don't see the difference. And as a matter of fact, as I mentioned earlier, that's my dad. That's Papa Tiger. Papa Tiger played this character when we filmed it. I did not use the original actress just because I wanted to try to take it back to the original design. But there's a movie here. This was a screenshot from the movie we attempted to make. I just drew it. Same with that. I just drew it. I replaced him, but he's real. He's a real person. Sammy Rowe. Sammy Rowe, if you ever hear this, contact me, because I've got an idea. We can save the movie, but it is going to use AI. But it doesn't mean that it has to be completely AI, and I would still like to incorporate as much human element as I can. This guy's real too. Oops. You guys got a spoiler there. Sorry about that. The reference for all of these, right from the film. I just took pictures, took screenshots from the film where we weren't able to get stuff from the film. Like, for instance, Omega Zero here. We were not able to get the bike. The helmet we ordered did not fit. His jacket was just a regular size jacket rather than a long coat. So we had stuff go wrong on set. And then we also weren't able to get the wires in time. so that he could do the stunt that is going to happen on page 22, which is in Photoshop right now being cleaned up. For stuff like this, I have link action figures that I set up in the in that little cube I was telling you about, and then I'll take a picture and then I'll work from the photo. So the photo, working from a photo is real old school. It doesn't hold you back the way that tracing 3D assets does. Again, I'm not saying that digital artists shouldn't be using these tools. They're there for a reason. They are there to speed you up. But at the same time, you'll see the individual artists lose their own identity by doing so. So I personally think that there is a larger complaint to be had against digital artists using pre-made assets, 3D assets or pre-drawn assets alike, than there is against AI. It's like I said, what AI does is it gathers static and then it organizes the individual pictures or sounds based on the parameters given to it by the artist, by the human behind it. I hand wrote all the lyrics for every single song here. And they're not all published because some of them are kind of dumb. And some of them I have turned into deliberately dumb songs. But I hand wrote all of these. Where's Gina's song? Gina's song right here. Yeah, I hand wrote that. Funny story, and Steel Bear will vouch for me on this. Is that every line in this song, these are all things that Steel Bear has said to me over the years. Every single line. And I just took the stuff that Steel Bear has been saying to me and I made a song out of it. That's why she totally doesn't cry every time she hears the song. Where would the AI be without me? Where would Leaflet's AI be without her? And so to pretend that there isn't a human aspect to it, it's just not true. And it's not Frankensteining other people's work together to make something new. That's not what's happening. But that is, again, and that's my larger point, that is what's happening with Clip Studio and Procreate and other programs like this. Because they do provide these tools that enable for people to literally Frankenstein other people's art together. And again, they will say to you, my license, and that's fine. But ultimately, if you're going to come after AI, then we get to scrutinize their tools as well. I think that's only fair. I saw a video on YouTube a while ago, back by Outlady is Crafted. Its title began with, "Why is AI art in such demand?" And he basically makes the point that these annoying and feral artists are so impacted because they are hostile and entitled personalities that would normally be unemployed. Yes, 100%. And look, anybody that's worked with me, with one exception, anybody that's worked with me in the development of art should be able to vouch for me on this, that I'm generally very pleasant to work with. Now, the guy that did the cover for issue number 1, let's see if I have that. I may throw this out. It cost me $250, but I may throw it out. I paid him $250. I gave him the concept, and I told him, I needed it in like 6 months. And then 6 months, I wanted to be able to start using it for marketing. So this guy told me that he worked on, and I don't even remember his name, to tell you the truth. He told me that he worked on Marvel Rivals. And long story short, I gave him the concept, told him what I wanted, and I told him that, he had 6 months, which I think is more than a reasonable amount of time. 6 months later, he's got nothing. He's not responding to me. He's not taking my calls. He's not responding to me on X. He hasn't blocked me or anything like that yet, but he's just completely ignoring me. So I go to PayPal and I explain the situation, and they take $250 away from him and give it back to me. He pitches quite the fit. He pitched quite the fit. And he comes after me and he's going to file all kinds of complaints and all this other stuff. And I'm like, dude, I gave you half a year. Half a year. And then you weren't responding to me at all. So how was I supposed to know you didn't take away my $250 and just run? And he's like, excuse me, I am a professional artist. I would never do anything like that. You just needed to wait. Wait for what? Wait, exactly what am I waiting for when they're not communicating, right? I don't do that. If somebody pays me to do something, if it's a black and white, I can probably have it done in a week or two. If it's full color, it might take longer. There are projects that I'm working on that I've volunteered to do and stuff that I'm doing as gifts that is taking longer because I've got a lot on my plate right now. But if somebody's paying me for a project, I prioritize that project and I make sure that project gets done first and foremost. And I make sure that the customer is happy with it. That's not what this guy did, though. This guy didn't pay me any attention at all until I got my money back. So then he gives me this. And I gotta confess, this looks like traced AI to me. It's certainly not up to the caliber of the art that we expect from Marvel Rivals. And if you look at his page, and again, I don't remember the dude's name, but the dude actually put some real effort into his Marvel Rivals type art. There's a vague resemblance for some of the characters, I suppose. I paid for this. I may use it. I don't know. I don't like it, and I'm not happy with it. I gave him the money back, obviously, because he delivered something. But this, yeah, exactly. I could have made a better gen easy. The only difficulty would have been to have so many characters in one spot. But when you lack this level of or so much detail, I mean, there's just this doesn't look like Marvel Rivals to me. And this isn't what I paid for, and this isn't what I was expecting. And so, having had experience like this with other artists, as opposed to other regulars in my crew like Pinkuella and Ashley. Ashley has been very open with me about her process, and she's really rock solid. I really enjoy Ashley's work. I enjoy Pinkuella. Pinkuella is one of the friendliest people you will ever work with. And she's relatively inexpensive, too. And so you'll always see me shouting those two out specifically. Another one made by Raven, who's doing my model. She's really good to work with. There are artists out there that are good to work with, but they are getting buried by the ridiculousness of these other artists that are refusing comms because they don't agree with people politically, refusing to deliver on their promises, refusing to communicate, refusing to. I mean, come on, guys. This is just. He threw this together at the last second because I took the $250 back. That's what this is. That's what this is. And I wanted the cover to be something special. So I've been burned by other artists before. And I understand where people who are now criticizing the digital art sphere, I understand where they're coming from. I've experienced it as well. That's not what I would do as an artist myself. Again, if somebody pays me, and number one, I want to be clear. If you have been turned away by one of these Quangos for political purposes, if my style will meet your needs and my methodology will meet your needs, I will do it for half the price of these VGen artists. I will do it for half of what these VGen degenerates are charging. And I am not going to deliver whatever this is. I'll actually give you my all. I'm. What would you guys do with this? Actually, what do you guys think? Should I keep this or roll with it or discard it and just consider it a loss? No, I wouldn't wait 6 months to start a project and that. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, one of the reasons why Pinkuella and Ashley are so great to work with is because they will give you step by step their progress. Pinkuella just turned in a sketch of Gina earlier today, and it's really cute. It's really, really cute. But and then Ashley will do that as well. I would like to get my money back, but unfortunately, because of the rules of PayPal, he delivered something I therefore can't. But she did one of Anthony. Actually, you know what? I may have that. I may know where that is. And I will show you.
You are welcome to the Quan.
Thank you, Blind Man. Thank you so much. Thanks for the follow. I hope you enjoy the show. Look at that level of detail she put into it. Right? Like, this is really incredible. She actually got his stripes right, which is more than I can say for the AI. The AI is always getting his stripes wrong. But then she also did me a solid and did the comic book logo in Japanese. So this is Ashley's at work. It's just absolutely incredible. I love this so much. But she sent me step by step every phase of the artwork, you know? And she actually spent a great deal of time asking me questions about Hangar and how the poses work and trying to understand the tiger mechanics and lying leg stance and horse stance and all this other stuff. She spent hours with me asking questions about that, you know? So she's somebody who takes her work very, very seriously. And I can't sing her praises enough. Just, you know, she wants to learn about the character. She wants to learn all the mechanics of the motion and everything. She wants to really understand what it is that she's working on. And then she puts this out. And this is far, far, far better than that. $250 for this. 6 months and a fight over the money. About 4 weeks on that. She's good. She's good and she'll deliver. I don't remember this guy's name, but I'll never work with him again. I do know that he claims to be associated with Marvel Rivals. So just be on the lookout for that, you know. It's very frustrating. So, you know, people who want to get on our case for turning to AI, you know, I'm sorry, but the customer service has got to improve. It's really got to improve. And you know, I think there are good artists out there like Ashley, like Pinkiwa, who and Raven, all of whom I am happy to do business with. But they, you know, they're out there, but they're unfortunately more and more the minority of people. Good customer service is important to me as well. It matters to me. I want anybody that pays me to do work for them to be happy with what they've done and to have enjoyed the time that they spent with me working on the project. That's really important to me. But for a lot of these people, they don't. They expect you to turn over their money and accept whatever they produce without question. How much for a new anime style character from Ash? Yeah, do it. Do it. She will not let you down. You know, it takes her about 4 weeks, but she will show you her progress every step of the way so that you know where you're at and how she's doing it. She's very transparent, very open with her work. Really great. Let's see here. I really like the shadowing. It hints towards a seraph. Yes, it does. I love it. It's great. Ash is actually working on the cover of the next 2 issues, and I'm a little bit tight of funds right now. Otherwise, I would probably just ask her to do issue number 0 as well. The amount of artists who will take your money, your commission money, then explicitly make it so that you don't own it and aren't even licensed to is commercially staggering. Yeah, and I want to be clear that any third-party artists that I hire, you guys are going to be working with my IP. I do own it, and it's in fact you guys who don't. That being said, I am pretty loose with my IP. My only rule is that I just want to know that it's happening. So, you know, if I design a logo that you guys like and you're like, hey, I want to use that in my music video, just let me know. And you know, any of the characters that I create, same deal. Just let me know. Just tell me it's happening, and not only will I okay it, but I will very happily help you to promote it. So if you guys make music videos and you want to include Anthony or Gina or Iron Tiger, I've hilariously I've had a ton of requests for Gina, but none of them have panned out. I've said yes every time, but I don't know. You know, maybe eventually. These I have designed these characters to look realistic, and sometimes realistic is hard to do in AI, especially if you're using Grok. Grok is very, very video gamey right now, but Grok is also one of the cheaper ones and one of the more flexible. So I do rely on Grok, except until we get to complex shots, and then when I need to do something complicated, right now I'm switching over to Cdance. But you're right. You're right. We have to be really, really adamant and really, really stamp our feet that that is not an acceptable TOS, especially if there are original characters. These characters that I'm using, they belong to Baihu Holdings LLC, which is the company I founded, which is, to be fair, a holdings and investment firm. But we are trying to branch out into entertainment. Grok is solid, second place, local gen. Yeah. Like, all of my characters are created locally, and then I'll use either Grok or Cdance to animate them. The Quangos shouldn't feel threatened by AI because nobody's really making money off of it right now, and most of us are just doing it just for fun. So, I mean, it's not threatening anybody, not really. But I do want to get to a point where mostly you won't be able to tell between live action and AI. We're not quite there. I think we're close, but we're not quite there. I think there's problems with trying to keep backgrounds consistent. There's still, although not as bad, there's still problems with keeping characters consistent. It's gotten a lot better. And then, of course, blocking and setting up the shot is a lot harder than it ought to be. Unless, of course, you're Skybrows. That dude, that dude is magic. But you know, Skybrows is another one who's actually a traditional artist as well. He actually has experience working in special effects, and he sees the potential for this, obviously. And he is probably the leader of the AI art movement. So he's just absolutely incredible. But he has that in his background, and that enables him to do things with AI that most of us don't even think about, which is, you know, just incredible stuff. Anyway, so long story short, I think that if the anti-AI people really, really, really want to make a thing out of this, we can, but they're absolutely Frankensteining other people's art together. And you can say, well, it's just to save time, and under normal circumstances, even I would agree. Sure, I do it by hand, but that's my choice to do it that way. I don't oppose other people using other arrows in their quiver. But AI is not theft. And I think that it's absolutely ludicrous that they want to blame us for their own shortcomings and their own failings when it's clear that the real problem is their terrible customer service. And until they fix that, I don't see their work getting sold. And the other problem that they're facing is that because they're so overly reliant on these tools, and they don't actually have a fundamental understanding of traditional art, there are basics that they're lacking. Some of the stuff, like drawing Picasso upside down, is it's boring. People want to learn the good stuff. They want to learn the good stuff right away, but the fundamentals are important. And the fundamentals in art and martial arts, the basics are always what you fall back to when you're in a pinch. So I don't think that they're in a position where they have any moral leg to stand on to go against AI. Just a quick shout out to our new sponsor, Bloggers.com. Use my code Tiger for Bloggers.com.
My hubby worked really hard on this, so like, share, and subscribe, and join us on Patreon, and maybe I'll let him sleep. Maybe.